On February 11th of 2023, people walking in Lanier Park would call emergency services at 3:13 p.m. When police arrived at the scene, they would discover the body of Brianna Ghey, who was 16 at the time, deceased with 28 stab wounds to her head, neck, and chest. Once news of Brianna's death was released, her family put out a statement. Brianna was a much-loved daughter, granddaughter, and baby sister. She was a larger-than-life character who would leave a lasting impression on those who met her. Brianna was beautiful, witty, and hilarious. Brianna was strong, fearless, and one of a kind. The loss of a young life has left a massive hole in our family, and we know that the teachers and her friends who were involved in her life feel the same. We would like to thank everyone for their kind words and support during this extremely difficult time. We would like to thank the police for their support and the witnesses for helping with the investigation. The continuation of respect for privacy is greatly appreciated. Over $190,000 was raised for the Ghey family in order to help with the funeral of Brianna, and the family states that they hope that the funeral can be pink and colorful, just like her personality. It would only take 24 hours for police to find some suspects in Brianna's murder, and the suspects would be Eddie Radcliffe and Scarlett Jenkinson. Due to the pair being minors, their names were not released to the public at the time of their discovery. Jenkinson and Radcliffe were both arrested and questioned by the police. Both of them denied any involvement in Brianna's murder until messages that they both thought were deleted were shown to both of them. Once the text messages were shown to both the suspects, Radcliffe and Jenkinson both turned on each other. They both stated that they were present for Brianna's murder, but stated that neither one of them had participated in the actual act of killing Brianna and pointed the finger at the other person. They were both arrested and charged with murder, and they both pled guilty. During their investigation, police would come to find out that Jenkinson and Ghey were friends. The pair had met at Birchwood High School and had hung out outside of school. In November of 2022, Jenkinson, in the hopes to reduce the risk of permanent exclusion and to give her a second chance, joined Birchwood High School on a managed transfer from nearby Culture High School. During the police investigation, they would uncover that when Jenkinson was at her previous high school, she had given a younger classmate a cannabis treat without telling her what it was. And as a result, the classmate would become ill after consuming it, and then the police were called. The police considered the incident a spiking. The head teacher at Birchwood High School, Emma Mills, said that she knew about the previous incident at Jenkinson's school. She knew about the spiking, but the school in itself, like the students and everybody, did not know about Jenkinson's previous history. She also states that she never got any red flags from Jenkinson during her time in the school, and that nothing about Brianna and hers relationship, like friendship, seemed out of the ordinary to her. Brianna and Scarlett hung out outside of school due to the fact that Brianna did not take normal classes. She took one-on-one classes with teachers in the school's inclusion room after being diagnosed with ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, and anxiety. Scarlett would say later on that she also would spend time in the inclusion room and that her and Brianna both liked that room because neither one of them really liked to socialize much. Scarlett's time in Culture High School, where she would meet Eddie Radcliffe. They were frenemies at first, both describing the other as a weird kid initially. Radcliffe stating that Scarlett was saying that she was satanic and that she liked to say things that would shock you, such as, "I'll stab your man," "shag your cat." Radcliffe and Scarlett's relationship outside of school was mainly online, both playing video games or chatting on WhatsApp, slowly becoming really good friends. Scarlett was involved in an intense relationship with a man that was in college, Radcliffe stating that it was so intense that Scarlett at one point carved his name into her arm. Radcliffe would tell investigators that Scarlett expressed that she had become obsessed with Brianna and put her on a list of people that she wanted to murder. There was a total of 4 other boys on that list that Radcliffe and Scarlett disliked. One Radcliffe thought was a nonce, another Radcliffe deemed a love rival, and the last 2 were mean to Scarlett's boyfriend. Prosecutors believe that Brianna was killed because she was vulnerable, not because she was transgender, and this was because Brianna was not the first person that Eddie and Scarlett tried to kill. They actually attempted to lure one of those males that were on the murder list out with a fake social media profile, but it failed. And both Eddie and Scarlett decided that Brianna would be the easiest on the list. The prosecution would say that Scarlett spent a significant amount of time trying to convince Brianna to come out to the park that evening. They would lead Brianna deep into the woods before brutally murdering her. Their frenzy was cut short when they were disturbed by dog walkers who thought something was suspicious. Brianna's lifeless body was found by the dog walkers, who immediately called 911. Scarlett and Eddie were both identified quickly as the suspects in the case after several eyewitnesses came forward following the large media appeal. During the trial, it would come out that both Jenkinson and Radcliffe had a fascination with murder, torture, and violence. Scarlett was deemed the mastermind behind their murderous plotting. At age 14, Scarlett became fantasized by films on the dark web along with movies on regular streaming sites of torture and murdering of people. Sweeney Todd and Dirty Dancing were Scarlett's favorite films. Scarlett claimed that she had a very sharp blade, the same one Sweeney Todd uses. She also made up a story about killing a boy named Landon. Eddie was a willing executioner, if not her assassin, according to the prosecution. Scarlett had Eddie's contact saved as Tesco John Wick. Scarlett had a journal, and in there she would list Eddie's attributes, which included trustworthy, very, very smart, genius level, and sociopath. Inside said journal, she also wrote her favorite serial killers: Richard Ramirez, Jeffrey Dahmer, Harold Shipman, and John Wayne Gacy. Scarlett would make notes of their kill methods. There was also a spider diagram exploring the difference between good and evil, and an anonymous list of initials written out under the heading "People That Need to Go." Text messages would show that Scarlett had attempted to kill Brianna previously before with an overdose. Scarlett wrote, "People already know she's depressed and shiz, so nobody would get sussed. I gave her some today that should have been enough to kill her, but she didn't die." Scarlett and Eddie would discuss the ibuprofen gel packs that Scarlett had put into Brianna's McDonald's shake, and Eddie would state that the gel packs might be killing her slowly. Esther Ghey, who is Brianna's mother, stated that she recalled the evening of January 23rd, where she would walk into her daughter's room. She was rolling around in agony, screaming in pain, saying, "I think I'm gonna die." She recalls an incident where Brianna was really sick. She appeared to be in real pain and was screaming and crying for me to help her. She has never been like that before and never since. This was not long before she was killed. Brianna was extremely sick over the floor and hung on the side of the bed, but would eventually improve over the evening. Esther chalked it up to a sickness bug. Esther would then describe how Brianna suffered from anxiety, so she would stay in on the weekends and did not go out alone. I know sometimes she spent time with Scarlett after school, but Brianna was always home from school before I got home from work, so I do not know how often they would spend time together. Scarlett said she wanted to stab Brianna just because it's fun, lol. I want to see the pure horror on her face and hear her scream. Even though the prosecution states that Eddie and Scarlett both participated in murderous conversations, they believe that Scarlett was the one that was getting more excitement from it, and that led her to actually be impatient to the point where she actually tried to move up the murder date that they had set between each other because she was getting impatient. But Eddie replied, "It's a school night, I cannot," and that he was not going to risk taking a knife to school. Days before Brianna's death, Scarlett would text Eddie stating how excited she was for that fateful day, and Eddie would respond, "Why?" before stating, "Oh yeah, I forgot." Scarlett was actually the one who suggested to murder Brianna at Linear Park because she went there often to walk her dog and knew a secluded spot. Brianna's death actually was planned for a date 2 weeks prior to February 11th, but Brianna actually canceled last minute due to a family dinner. Eddie and Scarlett both went to Linear Park regardless in what police consider a dry run. Scarlett handwrote a plan for how, when, and where they would kill Brianna. The pair even had a code-word "gay" for when the attack would begin. The note stated, "Meet Eddie at Wooden Post 1 p.m. Walk down to library, bus stop. Wait until Brianna gets off bus, then the three of us walk to Linear Park, go to the pipe/tunnel area. I say code word to Eddie, he stabs her in the back, I stab her in the stomach. Eddie drags the body into the area, we cover up the area with logs, etc." Scarlett would invite Brianna to the park on February 11th with the promise that she was going to get absolute shiz-faced and high AF. Scarlett would then ask Eddie what type of knife he was bringing, and he replied, "I showed you in person as well as on the phone." She continued to reply, "And that will definitely kill her, 100%. Eddie and Brianna actually met for the first time on February 11th, the day of Brianna's murder, and throughout the entire planning of Brianna's murder, Eddie never used her pronoun she. He would always refer to her as it. Eddie claimed that he was not transphobic and blamed the murder on Scarlett. Eddie's lawyers stated that Eddie's offensive messages about Brianna were juvenile and immature. The names on Scarlett's kill list were not gender specific, he told the court. They were simply people she disliked, and Eddie simply agreed with her. Eddie's motives to assist Scarlett were simply because he wanted to please her. Sadism is pleasure from inflicting pain, and we submit that that box is well and truly ticked for Scarlett, but not for Eddie. However, the murder weapon is a knife that Eddie purchased during a trip to Bulgaria in 2022 during Christmas break. Scarlett also mentioned the trophies taken during their killing plans and even took a last photo on her phone of Brianna at the park. The prosecution determined that around 3 p.m. on February 11th of 2023, Brianna was sitting on the bench when she was suddenly attacked, potentially initially from behind with Eddie's 13-centimeter hunting knife blade. Brianna was stabbed in a frenzied, ferocious attack. Brianna tried hard to cover up, with tendons on her hands and her arms slashed in a futile attempt to fend off the blows. She ultimately suffered 28 stab wounds, 14 to her head, 14 to her chest, back, and sides. The blade cut her throat, puncturing her heart and lungs. There was also enough force in the blows to cause damage to her rib, vertebrae, and sternum. There was no evidence that linked Scarlett to the murder weapon, and there was no blood found on Scarlett's clothing. In a later confession, she would state that the reason why there was no blood found is because she had washed her clothes prior to the police getting to her. Scarlett would send a text message to Brianna saying, "Girl, where are you?" as Brianna lied dying on the ground. Scarlett would then devise her cover-up story stating that Brianna left Eddie and her to meet up with another youth. Scarlett and Eddie would go back home as if nothing happened, and once the news hit of Brianna's death, Scarlett would then post a tribute online with a photo of Brianna saying, "Brianna was one of the best people I ever met. Such an amazing friend, so effing sickening what got done to her." Eddie gave evidence by typing on a keyboard on the side of the room of the courtroom during the trial. It was stated that gradually after his arrest, Eddie would stop speaking to anyone other than his mother, and was diagnosed with mutism and autism spectrum disorder. Forensic psychiatrists would confirm that Radcliffe did have mild autism and selective mutism. Scarlett also claimed to have ADHD and autism. However, a consultant forensic psychiatrist, Mrs. Here, examined Scarlett and came to the conclusion that she did not have any mental health illness, but presented a severe conduct dissocial disorder with limited prosocial emotions. In Scarlett's case, she knew what she was doing was wrong and knew it was very wrong. Police believe that the teenagers thought that they could cover up their crime easily. Scarlett even assured Eddie that he would not get caught, criticizing the capabilities of the police in their area. The victim impact statements were then read to the court. Esther Ghey, Brianna's mother, stated that Scarlett and Eddie would always pose a danger to society. "I would never want them to have the opportunities to carry out their sadistic fantasies on another child." She stated that the hardest thing to come to terms with her daughter's murder was figuring out that one of those charged was someone she believed was to be her daughter's friend. Alicia Ghey, Brianna's sister, states that now she has trust issues with new people, as it was Brianna's friend who she trusted who ended her life. Peter Spooner, Brianna's father, stated that being the father of a transgender child had been a difficult thing to deal with, but he had been proud to gain another beautiful daughter, and we were forming a new relationship that the two murderers have stolen from both of us. Wesley Powell, Brianna's stepfather, said that even though Brianna had a large following online, in reality, she was a lonely, vulnerable, and needed a close friend. Both Eddie and Scarlett knew this and preyed upon her vulnerabilities, acting as two predators stalking their prey. During the sentencing for the two, the judge said that he did not want to dwell on the murder in itself, but it was a brutal one. Taking in all the injuries that Brianna had endured pointed to a very sustained and violent assault. Sadly, Brianna could not have lost consciousness immediately, therefore she had to have been aware of the fact that she was being attacked. Mrs. Justice Yip stated that Scarlett was in fact the driving force behind the murder, but it would be wholly wrong to treat Eddie as if he was under the control of Scarlett. The messages that Eddie had sent were transphobic, dehumanizing, and undoubtedly showed hostility towards Brianna due to the fact that she was transgender. Mrs. Justice Yip would sentence Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe to life sentences and would only be released if the parole board decided that they were no longer a danger to society. The judge would then agree to lift the legal order preventing Scarlett and Eddie from being named that had been put in place due to their ages. The Jenkinson family made a statement to the Warrington Guardian saying that they were truly sorry to Brianna's family and friends and all those affected by the horror in which left their loved ones in turmoil. The last 12 months have been beyond the worst nightmares as we have come to realize the brutal truth of Scarlett's actions. They agreed with the sentencing that the judge handed down and the decision to release the teenagers' names to the public, saying, "All of our thoughts are for Brianna and her family." The Jenkinson family also thanked Esther Ghey for her incredible selflessness and empathy towards our family, and they said that they were forever grateful for her overwhelming compassion.